Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Universal Agent webinar. We're going to wait for a few minutes just so whoever would like to join the webinar can log in. And we'll get started in a couple of minutes. All right, I think we'll get started then. Atomic Work recently launched the Universal Agent, and we are here to talk about what that journey looked like for us. From where we started to how we built it. And joining us today are Gautam, our lead of AI platform, Denin, our AI engineer, and Rikshita, our front end engineer. I'll jump right into it, and we'll start with setting some context. So Gautam, can you tell us what the Universal Agent is and why we built it?
Yeah, definitely. So at Atomic Work, one of the core ideas or the inception of it all was that we have a lot of customer support. Um, is there a call coming?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is that from one of our?
No, no, that's done. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
okay. Yeah, so yeah, I think we've seen customers have great customer support in enterprises, right? And one thing we feel that is employees need a lot of great employee support too, right? And the key departments you work with are generally IT, HR, legal, finance, facilities, right? And we when we set out with Atomic Work, we wanted to be in the flow of work, help assisting you through all your touch points across these different departments, as well as support within the work you actually do, right? And we started off on Slack and Teams, progressed over onto email, and because that was where all the communication was happening. So if you needed help with something, you would pretty much ask Atom on Slack or on Teams and so on. But while working with a bunch of enterprises, what we really learned was that um, to really be in the flow of work, Slack and Teams was still a bit of context switching. So if I'm a salesperson and I'm on Salesforce and I run into an issue and I need help from an IT teammate, right? I would still have to go over to Slack, which was somewhat equivalent to going to a portal, and then I'd have to ask for support, and that just felt pretty disjointed. So we wanted to double click on that experience even further. And one of the very first ideas was to pretty much be available on those enterprise applications, like your Salesforce, NetSuite, Workday, and so on. And some of the early ideas were pretty simple, right? In the sense, you would have a chatbot of some sort that would assist you on those pages. And then we know that we already power great automation behind the scenes with a lot of AI agents, and there was an experience level change that we wanted to make. So we spent some time in setting up our first iteration, which is essentially a Chrome extension today. And the Universal Agent basically acts as that Chrome extension, which has the ability to see your screen when you're on enterprise apps. You can talk to it, and basically it can support you through your employee lifecycle.
So, I'm guessing that even this Chrome extension, similar to Teams and Slack, that would have also been a chat experience, right? Um, so how did we go from, that chat experience to actually making it, contextual or proactive and bringing in, vision and other modalities that would feel more natural to the person who's asking for help?
Yeah, yeah. I think when we started, it was just the idea of chat, right? And we saw that we first launched chat internally within our org because we use a lot of AI within our org to augment a lot of support, whether it's writing code, whether it's doing deeper research about products, about the space, and so we knew that we would be the ideal fit in the sense that we would really exploit Atom as a chat interface. But we did see that internally usage did taper off a little bit because realistically, you still needed to think about Atom being there, right? It didn't feel as proactive in nature. You needed to go to the Chrome extension at that point of time. This is like very early, almost like a V0 or a V0.1. And then we realized the problem was that people had to load a Chrome extension, and then whatever they were experiencing on their enterprise app, they had to start typing that down into a chat interface, similar to what you do with ChatGPT today, and you have to give elaborate instructions, which just felt again disjointed because we were trying to be in the flow of work. We were there, but we were kind of lost, right? And that kind of led us into like vision, pretty much, right? And we went about building what vision looked like with chat.
So, what does that look like? I mean, and I will direct this question to Rikshita. If you can tell us, what for the user, from the user perspective, from the UI side, what does building vision with chat actually look like?
Right. So when we set out to build Atom, we didn't just want to create another AI assistant, right? We wanted an assistant that could see and understand your screen in real time. Imagine having a smart coworker that sits right beside you, instantly able to help you with whatever that's on your screen, no matter what you're working on. So something like that. So chat and vision support very different user mindsets, right? Chat is structured and memory led, perfect when users know what they need. But vision, on the other hand, is for when words are not enough, when you just want someone to see what's happening and help you out, right? So we treated them as distinct systems. Chat had to support continuity, memory, and clarity, whereas vision had to be reactive, low latency, and always in sync, even with a changing screen, right? Vision wasn't about just screen sharing, it was more about awareness. That meant designing for live context that updates as the screen changes. No lag, no confusion, just Atom reacts along with you. All this had to work within a web browser with minimal lag and maximum reliability, right? So we set out to build a screen sharing feature that's as fast as it is intuitive as well, that Atom can watch and react to instantly, right? So the real magic happens when Atom is able to sense changes as soon as they happen, whether you're switching tabs or opening new windows or scrolling through a document. It's like watching a live movie where Atom is always up to speed with exactly what you're doing. But this wasn't just about showing a screen, right? It had to be responsive, intelligent, and ready to assist at a moment's notice, right? So we didn't just layer on chat and screen sharing. We built a seamless connection between the two. So Atom could respond with both visual context and conversational understanding in real time. More like imagine asking a question about something you're seeing on your screen, and Atom not only answers but can highlight and guide you through it, all while watching what's happening in the moment. So Sanjana, a senior product designer, she spent days going through different chat and visual systems while crafting a chat library while we were thinking of how we want to build it. It taught us how easy it is to design only for the happy path, right? Real users don't always cooperate. You think of one thing, real users always don't align with you. So we riffed, we improvised, and learned what real support should feel like: natural, helpful, and should feel human, right? That's what shaped our flows, like not just screens, but the conversations. Honestly, voice was new, not just for us, but for this entire whole space. With chat, people are direct, but with voice, people are uncertain. They didn't say raise a ticket. They said something's not working. Right? This thought changed everything. We stopped designing for commands. We started designing for collaboration. Atom wasn't just answering; it was thinking along with you. It was thinking along with you, answering the next question, following up the thread, and acting like a real teammate, not a script. But building all of this was more than just a technical challenge. It was about making the entire experience feel like effortless. No complicated tools, no confusing settings, just an intuitive flow where Atom feels like a real person assisting you without interrupting your workflow. So we focused on making it feel natural, fast, and responsive with instant feedback. So you always know what's happening.
That's very interesting. I'm gonna and you brought up a lot of points that I do want. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I want to get Denon's perspective here. Because so with chat and vision, it's still very it's very dependent on the user. Even if Atom can see what you're doing, the user still has to um, communicate over typing, right? But then, so how did voice AI come into this? Why did we? How did that come up? What were we? What I understand that's the problem we were trying to solve, but how did we manage to uh, bring that in? Because that feels like a massive leap forward.
Yeah. First off, I'd like to say, I mean, no one could have explained it better than what Rikshika just did, and I was just like, that is more understanding than what I have of the product. But definitely coming back to your question, it definitely felt like a leap at first, but I think in hindsight, it was a very natural evolution of sorts. So once we had chat and vision working together, we started to realize that people still default to what's most instinctive to them, that is, talking. Um, and then thinking about, like, just think about how people describe a problem. They pick up a phone, or if you're in Slack, you get in a huddle, or you get in a meeting, and you turn to your colleague or whoever the IT representative is, and you ask them, this is not working. What should I do? And they help you through it. Now, um, that experience was not like to stimulate that experience when it's a board on the other hand, to make it feel natural was definitely a challenge. And more than anything, we were uh, you know we were really overwhelmed with how much behavioral this thing we have to cater to, that is, to make a conversation feel natural. Latency definitely plays a major part in it. And if we are talking about a natural conversation with another person, uh, you sort of tend to create your response before the other person is, sort of finished talking. So the latency there is, like, let's say 300 milliseconds, and you definitely need not have to get it right off bat. But when you come across another something different, you always have like a backup in your mind. And well, once we started exploring how to let users speak to Atom naturally and have it respond, with not just canned answers, but with guidance, that takes everything into account. That is, what's on the screen, what they're actually trying to do, and most importantly, the organization's context, that is, the knowledge base, what is baked in. And a big part of that journey was understanding the difference between just transcribing words versus actually understanding context. Now, I'd like to think that a lot of effort went into making sure that Adam could handle not just what is said, but what was meant to be said.
That's very interesting. I'm going to bring Gautam in here because I want a little more. I want to deep dive a little bit into how how we sort of have the intelligence and how, the reasoning behind all of this. Like in the sense, how much Atom had to really how we built that into Atom. Like how are we giving Atom enough of this context? And how are we making sure that it's dynamic and it's real time and it's moving. Um,
Yeah, I think look, like it was kind of like Denon mentioned and Rikshita both them mentioned, it was a natural evolution to bring in vision and the ability to speak, right? So you had chat, you had a brain, you gave it eyes, and now you gave it ears, and it always was able to. It kind of had a mouth because it could speak, right? And it was a full fledged person of its own, right? And um, what what we started paying attention to was how would we interact, right? Because it's one thing to be helpful, right? But it's another thing to be more real. Because helpful can mean that I can take 30 seconds to plan the perfect response and then help you out. But you're again, where I started off with, where we wanted to be in the flow of work, you are kind of disconnected from work if you have to wait 30 seconds for help, right? You're context switching, you sort of, you went from needing help on an app or needing help on your device to now needing help with Atom, right? And that's the disconnect that's there. Like Denon mentioned, when we interact, we have the luxury of thinking while you're speaking, like while participant A, which is you, if you're speaking, I have the ability to think while you're talking. But with these systems, because we want to understand the intent, it's sort of like a parallel action, right? Like you have to think while the person is speaking, and you have to make sure that your response picks up from where they left off, right? So it's not like generating a traditional responses. So that was one area that we felt naturally just had to come through. And the second was, we've seen a lot of voice agents out there, right? And honestly, some companies are doing some great work on them, right? How real they sound. The other day, Ren and I were playing around with one of the systems out there, and it was chuckling, it was whispering, right? So I think that was great to see. But when we when we set out over here, we were pretty confused because now you have a voice agent, and it could see your screen in the middle of the call. Maybe you didn't grant it share, like screen share access upfront when you join the call, right? And then you could have a full-fledged conversation. Suddenly you're giving that system a pair of eyes. Suddenly you're revoking the permissions. You could switch back to chat for whatever reason. You could upload an image in the chat interface. You could go back to sharing your screen. So practically, the modalities were constantly changing. It's like I'm turning off some senses and I'm enabling some senses. So it got really complicated to sort of handle that. And then it just meant that we had to pay attention to how we interact and then try to bring that into the system, as opposed to sort of taking what's there and rolling with that, right? So most of it came from a lot of internal playing around with it, and we struggled in the initial builds because we were like, this is not. I thought vision and like seeing and hearing is all I needed to make this work, but the timing of it all was something altogether.
Mhm. And I'm sure that bringing all of these modalities together and bringing it in such a way that the user isn't confused about what they have to do next, right? Like you I shouldn't it shouldn't be the case where they start a conversation with Atom and then suddenly they don't know, how do I share my screen, or
Yeah.
how do I switch to chat, or how do I start a voice conversation. That I think that part of the experience also would have been like a major challenge for us, right? Trying to make sure that this is as simple a user flow as possible, but you are giving them all of these capabilities in this one small Chrome extension, right? So I'm going to ask you, Rikshita, how was it? Like, what did that part of building it, bringing it together without, with a clean interface, if I can phrase it like that?
Right. So now we had powerful but separate systems, right? Chat, vision, and voice interaction. On their own, they work well, but users don't think in terms of systems. They just want to talk, show, and solve problems not naturally, right? So that's when we realized the real challenge wasn't merging features, rather it was crafting a truly seamless human experience. So we flipped the script. Instead of asking how do we integrate these systems, we asked how would a user naturally start a conversation. Maybe they'd speak, or maybe they'd type, maybe they'd show a screenshot or share their screen. And what if they switched midway? Would the AI keep up? Would the context hold? That line of thinking led us to build a hybrid interaction model, one where the user is in control. They can start with voice or text, switch modes effortlessly, and even bring in visuals through screen sharing or image uploads. Behind the scenes, we keep it all stitched together in a coherent, real time conversation history. And this wasn't just a UI experiment. It became a defining feature of the Atomic Work platform. So by fusing voice, chat, and vision into a single conversational flow, we enabled a richer and more context aware experience, whether someone is troubleshooting an issue or onboarding a new tool. It just feels more human. So our modular architecture gave us the flexibility to maintain the context across interactions, plug into existing workflows, and deliver a product that feels unified and not patched together. Of course, building it wasn't a straight line. Every internal build we released gave us insight. Our team essentially became our beta testers, and their feedback directly influenced our roadmap, is what I'd say. Internal testing revealed real friction points. So this was a fast moving, highly iterative journey, I'd say. Some days feedback that we received in the morning would be in live fixes by night, right? So but we stayed grounded in one principle: make it natural, make it clear, make it inclusive, ensuring the tool is usable for all kinds of users. And the result is a conversational AI experience that doesn't force users to adapt to the system, rather the system adapts to them.
I can attest to that. I was part of the internal teams that did a lot of the early testing. It was, I will not lie, it was painful. But so we're talking a lot about, sharing the screen and, giving all this context to Atom. And I'm sure it's top of the mind for like everyone who's watching this or everyone who's listening in. Security and privacy, right? I think it would be one of the biggest concerns, and especially in an enterprise context, right? Where if Atom can see something, how do I know that it's not storing this? How do I know that my data is safe? How do I know that it's private? How do I know that it's not going to be accessible by anyone else, right? So how did we think about this? How did we, how much of thought did how much of a prior I mean I know that security and privacy is like our top priority always, but how did we bake that into this
Yeah,
whole experience?
yeah, I can take that. I think, look, our entire platform is built on that fundamental because um, Atom touches practically every employee, right, digitally, and that's the space where, because we're on browser, on device, on Slack, in their communication channels, I mean, security is our top, right? We keep. I think there's not a day that's gone by where Vijay's not come up to me and said security, reliability, and performance. Then we talk about features, and yeah, so it's really ingrained in us. And yeah, the way we thought about it was what would work for us, right? What would feel intrusive, what would not, right? Where is it acceptable, right? And it was a mixed experience, right? In the sense that we wanted to make sure that if you were using Atom for your enterprise applications, that your organization deems, this is where Atom should be involved. That's where we want to get involved. If the organization feels that, hey, this is an app where, like Facebook, right? It shouldn't be that Atom is now helping someone out on Facebook, to upload a post or whatever, right? That's not the realm in which that organization wants to function. Each organization would have their own requirements, right? And we make sure that we bring in those guardrails, and in a way, that tribal knowledge, right, that this company or this enterprise uses these systems. We this system A talks to system B in a very specific way, and we make sure that we operate on your NetSuites, your Workdays, your Salesforces, your your internal tools. It could be an internal atomicwork.com, some sort of internal portal, right? So there's no real system that it can't infer from, because it has all these senses. But we do ground it to make sure that it's not going and doing your WhatsApps or reading your personal emails or going through Facebook and assisting you there, right? Um, Another thing we do is, because a lot of these sessions or these conversations are across modality, we had to think through our observability in a way that it masks a lot of this data, not just a traditional text based PII masking, but we also had to learn and also plug in a lot of the voice based masking of data, and visuals, of course, right? We would just not store that sort of information, but we needed to provision that sort of information to be visible to select admins who run that entire department, right? So that was a balancing act that we needed to play. And I think because our platform offers that out of the box already on your Slack and your emails and so on, and your Microsoft Teams, it was a pretty easy thing to plug into. It's just the modalities we needed to account for. And so from day zero of launch, and from the first line of code, these were the sort of high level priorities that we set out for while we shipped through the iterations. There's also complete transparency in the sense that if you're using Atom, you know what it saw. You are also explicitly giving the consent, right? So uh, something we were thinking about in the experience was, if if uh, if Atom knows that it's on, let's say, Salesforce.com, right, and it knows that you're on this page when you're submitting an issue. Let's say you're filing a ticket for whatever reason that maybe you can't automate and you need human assistance. It asks you for consent, saying, "Hey, can I pass this information across?" There could be some sensitive revenue numbers or something along those lines. And there, if you're on the voice experience, do you just take a yes and infer from that? But no, you want to make sure that digital consent is a click or a factual statement and not an inference made by AI. So there's a lot of stages where we've actually thought through, digital consent, transparency, reliability, end to end.
Nice. So we're talking a lot about how it's being used on like Salesforce and all of these apps. So I'll direct this to Denon because I'm sure, especially with our internal builds, you would have seen people using it with like a wide variety of apps and to solve a lot of different problems, right? Like what kind of usage or adoption, what kind of use cases have you seen? What are the interesting, what sort of the surprising use cases that you saw people using it for?
Um, well, adoption was something we were really excited about, and it indeed was a complex issue to solve entirely on its own, like speed scaling or whatever. Okay, so I think releasing it as a pilot in our company itself and having our atoms try it out, I think it sort of became a feedback loop in itself, where we were awed by things that it could do, which we didn't think it could do, but you know, um, essentially getting around the nitty gritties, the edge cases, and all that stuff. Now, I think at the core of it, a voice agent to which you can screen share is essentially trying to automate a boring process. Now, uh, it's I don't know. It's beautiful how Atom tries to automate a boring process. Like when you see, it helping people navigating tools like NetSuite, like creating a GitHub key, or figuring out tricky design flows in Figma, or you know, uh, or being on device itself. That is, helping people solve VPN issues and all that stuff. While retaining the context of the enterprise itself, that is sort of magical. And I feel like with voice and vision together, they just ask for help. Adam sees what they're seeing and walks them through the solution step by step. It's uh, sort of like having a co-pilot with you live, who can actually understand what you're trying to get done. And you know um, what is really cool to see is sort of seeing the this shift in mindset that people are using Atom as not as a backup but as a sort of a first resort now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I can attest to that because just before this call, I was actually in Microsoft Word and I was trying to get Atom to help me with something, and then it ran me through like four solutions, and then it was like, and it really tried. Like I was with each solution, I'm like, this is not working. It's like, I'm sorry, that didn't work. Let's try something else, and I'm like, by the fourth one, I was like, you've really done your job. I'll give you a break now. But I also remember that in those early, like when we did the pilot launch with the atoms, we saw some very interesting use cases come up. Like I remember there was Raghav from our solutions team, wanted to mirror his iPhone through Zoom, and those are problems that typically people would need to, like, you either have to read up like a lot of documentation, or you'll have to watch like a YouTube video at like 2x speed to be like, okay, how do I just get to the point where you tell me how I can actually get this done, right? But this was just it was effortless. I mean, it looked effortless for Raghav. Like, it's just 2 minutes. Atom is looking at your screen, and it's looking at your initially your browser. It can read your Zoom context, and then it can also read your device context. It's running you through the system setting. It's figuring out which one is working, which one isn't. And like you said, the word to use here is really magical. Every time we see someone use it, it does look magical, because you're suddenly like, I have someone to really just help me through these flows, and that's an incredible thing. I will we'll just to keep this moving. I'll direct this to Gautam again. So I want to understand, what kind of impact have we seen with this? What is one what kind of impact? What are your learnings from especially these initial rollouts and the launch? And where do we hope to take this going forward? Like, what are our future plans for the universal agent?
Yeah, I think off the top of my mind, when we saw this rollout to some of the enterprises, we felt like whatever we've built on Slack and Teams is outdated, and it just felt like I'm not going back there. Right, that was my first thought. uh, and I remember this one use case. It was so Atom was, I mean, they share the screen from the Chrome browser, and they share their entire screen, so they gave consent to the entire device. And they were facing difficult. Their security team had asked for rolling out their kanji in a different installation. Right, it's an MDM software, and there's like a step one, step two, step three, and it's like a traditional way of doing things, but it's not straightforward. Right, you have to plug in some keys and this and that. And this person just like practically just used Atom and shared their entire screen instead of a specific browser this time. And it went through those steps, and it knew, because we have an entire asset management module. It knew that this was a like this user has a Windows system. It's on a Lenovo. This is where you go to actually find these details and then actually help them install their entire flow out. And yeah, sometimes you're also awestruck in that way. So I think one thing is we realize that we should stop asking too many what if questions, and just say let's just do it. And then as long as it's secure, it should be, we can make it work. So there's no use case you can't get assistance for anymore. That's a clear learning. Structured workflows, unstructured AI agents, all that automation that we have built now just got a very fresh new way of being in the flow of work. So I don't think there's any use case in any department that can't be either automated or self-fulfilled with the help of Atom anymore. Like, I think everything can be at this point. Um, we learned that modalities needs to feel more human. So we need different modalities of voice, vision. Even we need the email Atom to talk to this voice Atom, right? And make sure it retains that context. And the main thing we learned was that everything is context engineering. And we were very well positioned in that sense, because right from our Slack and Teams experience, we built like this entire context engineering layer, right? With our entire enterprise graph and things like that, which could remember who you were, which could remember your previous conversations. And now, because you're in the flow of work and that memory is coming through, it's something else altogether right now. So I think one thing we've, at a very high level, we have realized that we shouldn't underestimate the different modalities. I was a skeptic when I started. Now I'm red pilled into voice and vision.
You're a convert, isn't
I,
it?
I have converted, yes. And yeah, in terms of what next, I think we have done a decent amount of work in making it proactive, but I think um, it should still feel it should be more, right? We want to keep pushing that and that side of the envelope, right? Where um, if you're on, say, if you're, let's say, again, on an enterprise app, and we know these are the troubles you run into in an enterprise app, how can Atom come up to you and tell you, hey, this is not how you do this is how you do this? Or how can it proactively go and say, okay, you have run into an access issue on your Tableau and you don't have access to that dashboard. How can I go and fire the automations, check your employee privileges, go and process that for you, notify you in the context of your browser? All you're doing is looking at the edit screen and then tell you to refresh your screen, where it then okay says, okay, I've refreshed this tab for you, and then you just suddenly have the dashboard, right? And that entire cycle takes 5 seconds as opposed to 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, right? So that's the direction of proactiveness we want to head into in popular enterprise systems. And then I think deeper integrations into a lot of the IT and HRMS solutions is going to get us through to more automation again. And wherever integrations are not going to make the cut, we have some great stuff coming up with how Atom sits on the browser.
Very excited to see all of that come to fruition. So yeah, I think we'll end the talk there with a lot of hope and excitement for what's coming up in the future for the Universal Agent, and we'll move on to some questions from those who are watching. Um, Let me see. I will. Okay, I think this one, will be probably Denon can answer this because I think this is most relevant for you. So the question is, you mentioned real-time processing for voice AI. How did you overcome latency and make it feel instantaneous? Like, what were the challenges in building that?
Okay, I think yeah, like I previously mentioned about how human conversations feel natural. We sort of do the speculative decoding of what the user is going to say, and we already have an answer prepared for that. So creating a seamless experience like this was definitely a challenge, and you know, given that even we have to maintain the contextual awareness of, let's say, a user started a chat and then suddenly he was like, I want to get on a voice conversation instead, and carrying the context, the conversation forward from the chat experience to the voice experience, and then having keeping all the context in mind and processing what the user is saying in real time was definitely a challenge. And I feel like um, it was definitely a lot of playing around with models and like what other people do to reduce latency. And uh, I feel like at the end of the day, like what Gautam Rishika mentioned, we sort of became uh, you know good conversational designers. Like that is, let's say, if something as simple as you know getting something from the knowledge base, that is, you're asking something or how to reset your VPN, and checking that, going to the knowledge base, which definitely takes some latency to keep the user engaged in that time. To add filler words like yeah, and I think it was about adding filler words like, that I'm gonna check the knowledge base while it does the knowledge base searching, while before it even says the filler word, so that while it's done saying that statement, it already has the answer in hand. So it was a lot of engineering on that part, and I feel like we've seen really good feedback on that end as well. So I wouldn't say we've solved it completely, but I think we've solved a major chunk of it.
Great, and it's a great segue into the next question that's coming, and this I think I'll direct to Rikshita because so a lot of so the question is essentially that in terms of UI and front end, all of this is very dynamic, right? Bringing in different modalities, It feels like all of them have different moving parts. How do you, and you have to make it context aware across all of these platforms, right? So what would you say that, from a front end or a UI perspective, what was the biggest challenge for you to make sure that, this didn't feel like you said, to make it feel natural?
Hmm. To be honest, building the UI wasn't a front end challenge. Rather, it was an experience challenge because we weren't designing a typical chat window. We were crafting a live multimodal conversation space where voice, text, and visuals could fluidly interact in real time. But the biggest hurdle was making complexity feel invisible. Users don't care about how many systems are running behind the scenes, right? They just want to talk, type, or share their screen and have it work. But behind that simplicity lies a deeply intricate system. So imagine a user speaking while sharing their screen and typing a quick follow up all in one session. Okay, I should not even use imagine. That's not a future scenario. That's our present. So we had to build a UI that could understand, adapt, and stay in sync with all of it without skipping a bit. Um, so state management was the first major battle with so many moving parts, voice inputs, live screen shares, text messages, images, transcripts, and all that. We needed a system that could keep everything in perfect harmony. So every interaction had to feel like the part of the same conversation, even if it came through a different channel. And then we had obviously performance was a challenge. We were dealing with long conversations, mixed media, and real time updates, so we couldn't afford lag. Handling dynamic content added another layer of complexity because their message wasn't just a message anymore. It could be a voice note or an image, a text or a visual. I mean, it might be a screen share or a screen capture or a combination of all of these. So we built a rendering engine that could interpret and display these content types on the fly, adjusting layout, and flow dynamically so that conversation always felt coherent. We as well fine-tuned visual feedback so users always knew when the system was listening or thinking or responding. We wanted users to feel like they could communicate however they wanted and the system would just get it.
Yeah, that's a very comprehensive answer. I think you've also answered a couple of other questions that came in. So I this is an interesting one, and I'll direct this at Gautam. So, what's your chaos engineering playbook for multimodal AI?
That's a very interesting question. The I think, look, with chat, we one thing we didn't want to reinvent was how that playbook came about for chat, right? One very early learning from our peers in the industry as well, and the top players out there as well, like model providers. They have spoken very loudly about building evals from day zero because, like Denon said, we are sort of turning into conversation designers, right? It's not about writing your first line of code or second line of code anymore. It's about writing what leads into a good conversation, right? And that's a very subjective topic, right? I mean, we built the entire trust framework around it, right? So I think I think building evals was always the right play there, and we've been doing that for chat for so long. We were able to then say, okay, what would be the evals for audio, and what would be the evals if if I was on a Google Meet, right? Essentially, and what do I expect from a friend of mine who's seeing my screen, right? And those are very easy questions to answer. It's not really that complicated, right? And that's how we came up with our eval set. We asked a lot of very simple but also very multi-turn conversation like questions, and we came up with a very elaborate eval set. That eval set essentially leads you into a lot of modalities, in terms, I mean, you kind of break that for each modality rather, right? Where you say, okay, when you can see the screen, this is what I expect, versus the same problem if I can't see the screen, what do I expect, versus the same problem if I'm just conversing on chat, what do I expect, right? So you start asking these simple questions, and you know what your favorite answer is when you ask these questions, right? If someone asks me, you're facing an issue with Zoom's screen share issues. I know if I know the answer, I'll say this is how I would want to hear this answer, right? I have a personal opinion. So the hard part is getting really smart people to align on that and align that this is what Atom should sound like and feel like. But once we get there, and once we figure that out for each of the modalities, it was pretty easy to then say, okay, this is what good looks like. And once you know what this is what good looks like, scaling it up is um, that's one of the hard problems that we always needed to solve. And then there are of course your engineering, your compute, your scale, those type of hard problems as well. But these were one of the hardest problems that we needed to align on internally, and solving that hardest problem just has a trickle effect on how you solve the rest of it.
Nice. Okay, so the next question, and this one is to Denon, I guess. I think he should be able to uh, be the best person to take this. So the question is, how does your chatbot, okay, that's not the term we're using. We are a conversational assistant. How does your assistant decide when to escalate to a human agent? And also, is it rule-based, AI-driven, or a mix of both?
Uh, I feel like you know, rule-based AI is a thing of the past. Now, when I say this, I like what I mean is that rule for us, um, essentially what determines an intent, like where the chat conversation should go, will be the intent of the conversation. Now, escalating it to a human agent or something would be, creating a request. Now, let's say you are having trouble accessing VPN. I'm going to take an example here, and you find an answer as to how to solve the exact problem, as opposed to you know. If you find an answer which makes sense, uh, which would help the user for that exact problem, you would obviously try to guide the user. And if that sort of does not seem like it is going anywhere, or it is not actually what the user wants, like for example what you said, trying to get help with Microsoft Word. You said it tried a couple of things and it didn't get anywhere. That is where the AI, or the sorry, the agent sort of makes a conscious decision to help the user make a general request, or like a service request instead, which would essentially is escalating it to a human agent, which who would have more context, because while you raise the request itself, the agent also has enough context about what the conversation looked like, and so he can just take it over from there. So yeah, that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think so. I think we'll be running over time, so I will direct one last question to Gautam. This is an interesting one as well. So you replaced off-the-shelf frameworks with an in-house stack.
Hmm.
Now, what did that unlock that no open source library could give you?
I don't know how much of this I can talk about, but yeah, it is just an unsolved problem in the sense that it's an unsolved problem in the enterprise space, right? We have seen some consumer spin-offs here and there. What we discovered a lot, right? So we it's not like we don't want to spend too much time building out frameworks, right? We want to solve the business problem. But while doing that, we realized that there are shortages or shortcomings, sorry, in the in what's out there right now. And we started discovering so many elements. For example, like I was saying earlier, right? If you're on a voice call and like let's say you and I are talking for some time, you can just hear me and you can't see me. Suddenly you can see me. Suddenly you can't hear. You have to read what I say in a transcribed way, right? And then we just keep going through the cycle a lot. It's really a different mechanism altogether. Um, you can think of you can think of this as a problem where it's not really a call you're making to an AI agent. You can think of it like a meeting room, right? In the sense that as a user, I have joined that meeting room asking for help. First, someone comes online and they start talking to me and they hear me, and then their teammate comes to start seeing my screen, and their teammate starts to join to then bring context of their organization or context of who I am, right? And then now you have a multi-participant sort of system, all working together, trying to work for you. So we knew that there was no mature solution out there. They are coming up, sort of. And when it looks interesting, it looks promising, the space. But we knew that if we wanted to, we knew we got the experience right. So we just had to figure out what the plumbing work between these different agents talking and different systems talking look like. So we did have to sort of set out what to ask the question, what is best, what does the best look like, and we had to answer it ourselves, right?
That's great. So I won't extend further. We'll just do a round of, I guess, ending thoughts from everyone, just to know, what are you excited to work on going forward? What was the most enjoyable part of this? Just a round of thoughts, and then we'll call it a night. We can start with Rikshita, I guess. If
All right. So what excited me the most, or what's exciting me still in present as well? We wanted Atom to be there, but you don't feel like Atom is there, right? So think of it like this: when you're talking to a friend, you don't want to see them freeze or disappear if there's a momentary distraction. So we made sure Atom works the same way. It stays smooth and natural, even when there are little delays, and it's always there when you need it. So that's the most exciting part. It's always there. Yeah, that's the most exciting part that keeps us on going.
nice. Denon, if you'd like to share your thoughts.
Wait, I had it in my mind. I just forgot when he was talking. Yeah,
I'll give you a minute then. If you need, we can go. We can.
yeah. So I got back. Yeah, so I feel like what is most exciting for me is to make Atom, uh, autonomous, or you know, automate a lot more than what it can do right now. Like for example, um, raising a request on its own, like rather than asking, like presenting service catalog, asking the user itself to raise a request, and fetching the required fields to submit the form from the user and confirming it, whether it's getting a digital or a click of a button or whatever. And that experience is what I'm most excited to build here on.
Great, great. And Gautam, ending thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's twofold for me. It's first is if I look at some of my favorite Chrome extensions that I've used pretty religiously, it's Grammarly, and what it does is it's beautiful, right? You just type an email, irrespective of the tab you're on, the system you're on. It's cute squiggly lines tell you that you basically are bad at your language of choice, right? And that's pretty proactive and intuitive, right? So how do we bring those principles in the context of Atom and in the context of an enterprise? That's definitely one. And second is to sort of steal Denon's answer. It's to drive more automation, and I think we have like really covered a lot of ground in terms of agentic automation, where we handle unstructured information and then we automate a lot. We've already, I mean, deterministic or like predictable rule-based workflows are also a solved problem in 2025. Um, what happens when you can't automate beyond APIs, and can't automate beyond deep integrations? That's an interesting area where we want to see how can the browser help.
Nice. Okay, I guess we've run the gamut on that. That's the universal agent from Atomicwork, everyone. It's proactive, it's in the browser, it's conversational, but not just over chat, it's voice and vision. And we love watching how it's solving a lot of problems and use cases, especially in troubleshooting and setup and things like that. And we are excited about seeing this changing the way people work in organizations. If you want to try it out, please do visit atomicwork.com and sign up for a demo, and someone on our team will talk to you through it, and we'd um, love to onboard you on that. So I thank you, Gautam, thank you, Rikshita and Denon, for your time. Talking about this, it has been very interesting to sort of understand what the experience building this has been, and of course, we're all very excited to see where it goes. And all the amazing things that the universal agent is going to do. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ria. Thanks,
See you
folks.
next time.
Bye.